when David Navarra actually did, I believe, file a complaint with FIDE, or he did something where he was complaining, he complained, he filed something, I think, about it. He basically got laughed out of the room. If those sponsors don't see any problem with what's going on, nothing's going to change, because they're going to keep giving the money to FIDE, and that's that. So like, as much as I hate to say it, I don't think anything's going to change, and it makes me very, very angry to say that, but I don't think anything's going to change. FIDE confirms ethics investigation into Kramnik following the death of Naroditsky. The International Chess Federation, FIDE, confirmed on Tuesday that they have formally filed a complaint against GM Vladimir Kramnik, the 14th world champion, referring him to the Ethics and Disciplinary Commission, the EDC, for investigation into the alleged harassment and bullying of Grandmaster Daniel Naroditsky. Naroditsky, the popular grandmaster, commentator, creator, and educator, unexpectedly passed away on October 19th at the early age of 29, and his death sparked a massive wave of tributes from fans and players in the chess world. Time for serious stuff. Yeah, so someone asked a question. They asked me, like, why am I covering this again? You know, one of the things that's important is, you know, we do have a big audience, and I've had this conversation with Levy quite a few times. I think a lot of you guys who are watching this stream would be surprised to know that many people, they get their sole information, their sole outlet of news for chess directly does come from watching videos of like Levy's or mine. They do not go anywhere else on the internet to get chess news or consume it in any kind of way, shape, or form. So even though I don't necessarily want to cover this, it's still important to keep people informed about what's going on. So that's my answer for someone who asked a question. It's a very valid question to ask, because frankly, I don't really like covering this stuff. I really don't. In a press release on Tuesday, FIDE named Kramnik as a respondent in the complaint, citing a pattern of conduct involving repeated public accusations against Naroditsky and Czech GM David Navarra. The latter wrote a deeply personal blog describing suicidal thoughts in the aftermath of a tweet where Kramnik named him. Now, I also want to add one other point, because this is going to be on YouTube at some point. Originally, when I made those videos about Dan, initially I forgot that the monetization was turned on for those videos. So I am going to be making a donation fairly soon. But the point that I want to make, and I said this on Tuesday during my Title Tuesday stream as well, there is going to be some kind of memorial. I don't know if it's a fund or what it's going to be for Daniel Naroditsky, which will go towards hosting a tournament and supporting some junior players in the future. So once all that is formed and I have actual information on what that is, I am going to be donating all the money that I made from those 2 videos to that fund. Some people complained about those videos and having too many ads and other stuff, so I had to chop down the ads and everything else. But in spite of having to chop down the ads on that video, I can tell you guys that those 2 videos generated more than $5,000, which I will be donating to this memorial fund and whatever once it's actually set up in honor of Daniel Naroditsky. So I did want to point that out while we cover this video on this article. So let's keep going. FIDE wrote, the complaint outlines a pattern of conduct over roughly 2 years and cites several public statements and materials that FIDE considers relevant to potential violations related to harassment and an insulting of an individual's dignity. OMG, from 2 videos, it's like more than 1 million? No, I'm talking about the 2 videos. Oh, you're saying it's more than 1 million views? I would tell you guys in general, like, there were people complaining about ads, so I did not have my standard ad placement in those videos either. For anyone who's wondering, if you're like, oh, it got more than 1 million views, why is it not making a ton of money? I cut the ads down in those videos, for anyone who's wondering, because there were people complaining and they're saying, oh, you're making money, you're monetizing, and it's just like, you know, it is what it is. So in case you're wondering, like, that's why. I don't know if that's what you mean by more than 1 million. You might mean something else entirely. But all right, let's keep going. Okay. FIDE's statement does not specify what the complaint is, though FIDE President Arkady Dvorkovich confirmed on October 22nd that the Federation Management's board would formally refer all of Kramnik's public statements to the EDC for independent consideration. Kramnik, the former world champion and one of the greatest players to ever compete in the game, has become an increasingly polarizing figure in the chess world since launching his campaign against what he believes is a cheating epidemic in chess. While he insists he has never directly accused anyone of cheating, saying he is merely asking questions, the chess community has widely interpreted some of his posts and videos as an accusation of foul play. At the end of 2023, Chess.com muted Kramnik's account following repeated accusations against other players. He was later suspended from prize events and is now permanently banned following what Chess.com called repeated and egregious violations of the company's community policy. Since Naroditsky, I should scroll up a little bit. Since Naroditsky's passing, several prominent players have also criticized Kramnik's actions. GM Magnus Carlsen recently described his former colleague's treatment of Naroditsky as horrible, while GM Levon Aroni suggested he gets professional help. GMs Hikaru Nakamura and Nihal Sarin have also described Kramnik's conduct as harassment. Now, one thing that's important to note also, and one thing that's kind of interesting about this to me is that, a lot of the stuff when it began, I think people conveniently seem to forget that Kramnik actually went after me very, very hard as well. Like, initially, he started talking about all these streaks that I had, how suspicious there were. He made many, many videos on me. He made many videos. He made many tweets. He even recently made a tweet when I recently set my all-time high at 3430. So it is kind of interesting to me that, like, when it comes to me or it comes to like Neil or some of these other players, like it gets forgotten. Even Jospam, another example of somebody, Jose Martinez Alcantara, another player who he went after really, really hard, who's ignored in all of this. And I think, in a way, like it's not, of course, it's not about me or anything like that, but I do think it's kind of sad that it only talks about two players specifically. I do find that kind of sad in a certain sense, because it was much more than that. It was much more than that. Naroditsky publicly denied the accusations, and during his final Twitch stream before his passing, spoke candidly about the mental toll of Kramnik's campaign. The problem is, ever since the Kramnik stuff, I feel like if I start doing well, people will assume the worst of intentions, he said, adding, the issue is just the lingering effect of it. Yes. And it's a situation where you can't win. At the end of the day, you cannot win in such situations. It's like, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's like if you don't always play well in every tournament, there's going to be this or that or the other thing. You can always try and say something negative about what someone's doing. If Daniel goes off stream and does very well, you can make an insinuation. If Daniel doesn't do well on stream, you can also make an insinuation. He always does well. You can make the other insinuation. Like, it's a no-win situation any way you look at it. And it's very it's very, very sad and disappointing. It's because you dealt with it. Yeah, I mean, some people dealt with it better than others, but as I've said myself, like when all that stuff first started and I started getting attacked, I played very badly in the chess.com Champions Tour or Champions Tour final, whatever it was called, in 2023, I think it was, or maybe it's 22. I played very, very badly in that tournament. I played way below my regular level in that tournament. I think I got 5th place when all was said and done, which I think was a small miracle because I was in Toronto, and I think I lost many Armageddons like Maxime to Jose, or not Jose, to a Noterbeck, many Armageddons, and like I played terribly in that event. So even when people talk about me, it had a very big effect on me too. It had a big effect. It's just that I was able to get past it and move beyond it, because I knew that the whole thing was complete crap. So let's keep going. The issue is just the lingering effect of it. Yeah. Following Naroditsky's death, Kramnik continued to post about the American GM, suggesting the real truth behind the tragedy was hidden. Public outrage has also continued to grow beyond social media. A Change.org petition, which has now gathered more than 52,000 signatures, calls on FIDE to impose sanctions on both Kramnik and FIDE CEO GM Emil Satovsky. The petition alleges that both made statements that were insensitive, speculative, and damaging in the wake of Naroditsky's passing, and calls on FIDE to revoke Kramnik's titles and demand Satovsky's resignation. Hikaru W said, "Is this an old stream?" No, we are live right now. Okay. The case will now be handled by FIDE's Ethics and Disciplinary Commission, the independent judicial body chaired by Yolander Persaud. The EDC can impose a range of sanctions, including warnings, fines, suspensions, and in severe cases, the revocation of titles or lifetime bans from FIDE events and positions. Persaud explained the process in a public statement. Once a complaint is filed, the EDC chair reviews it to determine if it's admissible. If accepted, the chair identifies the charges and forwards the case to first instance chamber, which will then notify both parties of the registration. The respondent is informed of the initiation of disciplinary proceedings and has up to 3 weeks to submit a response and any supporting documents if additional information is required. A second exchange of statements may take place with each party given up to 2 weeks to reply. After reviewing all materials, the panel will deliberate privately and issue its decision. So yes, there's going to be this decision. Someone asked a question. I said, why did FIDE sit on their hands until someone died? There are a couple of things that are really important. I mean, I said this in my last video too, but I think this is an important point, and which this applies to everything in life, is perception. perception is really, really important, and not everybody has the same perception about a variety of different topics. So for example, I can tell you that, you know, if you're not in the online space, and this applies to, you know, quite a few players who are very strong, if you're not in the online space, you're not paying attention to Twitter, it doesn't affect you in any way directly, it's very easy to not even notice this stuff. Like Peter Leko is a GM from Hungary who's playing the World Cup. And Peter, I think, even said something like he doesn't read stuff online, so he was unaware of how serious it was. So if you're not living on the internet, you're not in the space of online content creation, or like you're living, or the interactions you have aren't related to it, it's very easy to not be aware of what's going on. Now, that, of course, is being, I think, a little bit generous, but I think it's still important to note the perception that for a lot of people, the notion is like, whatever, you just laugh it off because you know it's complete nonsense. You just laugh at it and you think it's not serious and it has no actual impact. So it's very easy to think that way. And I think that a lot of people actually did think that way. I think it's just like, well, you know, you just laugh it off. It's not a big deal. Who cares? You know, he's completely crazy, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, that's not how it works if you're in this online space. So that's like if I'm being generous about it. I mean, I also would say, frankly, I think that, you know, it's an online thing. And I think the thing is that there are people who think that online cheating is a very big issue, or they think that it's happening all the time. I think people know very clearly where I stand on this issue, obviously, but there are people who do believe that. There are people who do think that parts of those statements and what was going on are actually true, which doesn't help either. So there are many different aspects to it. In terms of what's going on. I also think, however, though, one thing that's really bad about this whole issue is that when David Navarro actually did, I believe, file a complaint with FIDE, or he did something where he was complaining, he complained, he filed something, I think, about it. He basically got laughed out of the room, for lack of a better way of putting it, by FIDE. So that's actually, you know, that is the one big blemish on the whole. The blemish is even like being too nice, but that is the one big problem with it. Is that like FIDE had already been made aware of this. They'd already been made aware of what was going on, and nothing happened. And I mean, honestly, like, you know, I think at the end of the day, the problem with all this and is that I don't think anything's going to change. I really hate to say this, like it makes me angry, even saying this, but I really don't think anything's going to change. You know, at the end of the day, like when it comes to FIDE, the fact of the matter is FIDE has two big sponsors who put a lot of money into a variety of tournaments. And if those sponsors don't see any problem with what's going on, nothing's going to change because they're going to keep giving the money to FIDE, and that's that. So, like, as much as I hate to say it, I don't think anything's going to change. And it makes me very, very angry to say that, but I don't think anything's going to change. I don't think anything's going to change, unfortunately. You know, if the two big sponsors of FIDE currently saw a problem with it, then something might change. But I don't think they do, and so I don't see anything changing. Can't you, Magnus, and others make a new chess work? That's not realistic, and I'll tell you why it's not realistic. The reason it's not realistic, the reason it's not realistic to expect change to happen, or expect players to go along and do this, is because problem is nobody's ever going to agree across the board on things. No one's going to ever unanimously be able to agree as a whole. For example, if we look at Top Chess and how it works, let's just use the World Cup, for example. I'm going to play the 3-0 later. If you use the Chess World Cup as an example in India, let's just say everybody's like fed up and we all decide not to play. The problem is someone is not going to hold the line. Someone's going to decide, you know what, all these guys aren't playing, but I have to play. I have to make a living. Not all chess players are in a financial situation where they can basically tell FIDE to get lost. So you're always going to have a situation where it's going to be fragmented. One player's going to think, well, if I don't play, then this guy's going to play. There's too much of this sort of stuff. And it also comes back to what I said before about top chess players being a little bit psychotic. Like, that's how you look at the game. You look at it as like a zero-sum situation. I win or someone else wins. That's how chess players look at things. And I don't blame top players for thinking like that, by the way. I don't. Like, I understand it. You have to make a living. Chess it's not a situation like let's just say the NBA, for example, to use a proper, like, real sport. You know, if like Kevin Durant and Steph Curry and, you know, a bunch of those guys are like, you know, we have a real problem with some rule, or there's some problem with the basketballs or some issue. Like, I know it's more minor than this whole FIDE thing. You know, if they said something and they stood up as one, which they could do, it would lead to changes. And they could do it because they're all getting paid so much money that they're not risking anything. But top chess players are risking something, because most top chess players don't make a lot of money. Most chess players don't make money. Right now, I would say there are two chess players there are two chess players who you can classify as semi-professionals, maybe Fabiano also, but there basically are 2 or 3 chess players who are making 7 figures a year, who are making $1 million pre-tax. Only three chess players are making that much money to where they can do it. But when you look at the dynamics and you look at the World Cup, for example, which has a first prize of, I don't know, let's say $150,000, like most chess players, if they're lucky, they'll make $300,000-$400,000 a year if they're lucky. Make no mistake, that's a lot of money. That you can't not play a tournament. Like, that's huge money as a percentage of what you can try to make in a year in general. Like, you can't turn that down. So that's why, I mean, I hate to say it, but I'm very skeptical that anything really is going to change. I don't think anything's really going to change. And it makes me boiling mad, but like, I just don't think anything's going to change. So that's my takeaway. I mean, I'm ending this on a little bit of a depressing note, but you know, we'll see what happens with the investigation. Maybe something will happen. Maybe it won't. But it's definitely it's something to do. It's something FIDE is doing. We'll see what the eventual outcome is of it. But unfortunately, I'm actually not particularly optimistic that anything's going to change. I'm really not optimistic about that. So that's the article. So let's keep going.